What's good, everybody? Welcome back to the Cloud Slayer channel. Today, I want to do a little bit of reaction of truth about the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, Forgotten History. It is from Forgotten History, so if you haven't liked or subscribed to their channel or any other videos, do that not right away, but if you like this video, of course. But let's jump into this. I kind of want to hear about it. I heard a little bit about it in school, but I guess they didn't really go in depth, or I just don't remember, right? So, and I'm a grown-ass man, and it's been a lot of years since I've been in school, so.
The Ku Klux Klan, or KKK, is deeply rooted in the post-Civil War history of the United States. They are three of the most familiar words and letters in almost any language, synonymous with hatred, intimidation, and murder. What were the origins of the KKK?
It's a creepy-ass picture.
Why was it created, and by who? What have prominent historians stated about the rise and fall of the KKK? How did it evolve, and
that's a lot of white hoods.
What did that change become? How deeply was the Klan embedded into business, society, and even national politics?
Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, former soldier, Marine Corps scout sniper, history professor, historian, and book author. And we will answer these questions and other issues on this segment of Forgotten History.
The Klan had three evolutions in its history as it evolved and altered.
Oh man, so that's like that little sign, huh? Hail Hitler type stuff.
Its methods, tactics, and expanded its focus. All three movements have called for the purification of American society, and all are considered far-right extremist organizations. During each period of the Klan's existence, the official membership was secret, and estimates of the total numbers of members was unknown, and they were highly exaggerated by both friends and enemies alike. The first Klan was founded in Pulaski, Tennessee, on December 24, 1865, by six former officers of the Confederate Army. They were Frank McCord, Richard Reed, John Lester, John Kennedy, J. Calvin Jones, and James Crow. It started innocuously.
Yeah, started a long time ago. Well, we knew that already, right?
As a fraternal social club inspired at least in part by the then largely defunct Sons of Malta, perceived as an offshoot combined of the old Knights Templar and Teutonic Knights. The KKK adopted many of the initiation rites and formal ceremonies of those previous organizations with the same purpose of fraternity, solidarity, and most of all, political power, which today in hindsight is laughable as well as tragic. The official KKK manual describing these rituals was printed by Laps D. McCord of Pulaski, Tennessee.
It's kind of fucked up, I guess, and the way we're even seeing things today, they kind of, this is how they picture the U.S. in a way, you know what I mean? And this is how it's kind of talked about, but I don't know. It's kind of scary. I guess it still relates to it, but, you know, like to me, I don't really see that as much as often, you know what I mean? And it's more like the government, not just, you know, I don't know. It's a lot of confusion. A lot of people are confused and stuff like that. It seems like it, from my perspective, I guess.
Tennessee. The Klan also needed a distinguishing uniform, which later in their history would become notorious. Robes, and hence their adopting the Spanish capirote hood. Former Confederate Brigadier General George Gordon, for whom Fort Gordon, Georgia was named for, developed the prescript, which supported the superiority of white society and culture and adopted and taught white supremacist beliefs. They created the ranking system, and at the top of the KKK was the Imperial Wizard, or the National President. Below this,
passing it on to their kids and shit. That's crazy.
Were the Grand Dragons, who governed an individual state, called a realm. Then there were the Grand Magis, or Deputy Commanders, and then the Grand Cyclops, responsible under the Grand Dragons for establishing and maintaining recruitment standards. Below them were the Kleagles, who were managed and who were responsible for recruiting and vetting of new members. The rest of the members were the Klansmen, or the foot soldiers, and enforcers. Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest was elected the first Imperial Wizard and stated that he was the Klan's national leader. Forrest was very concerned about the Republican
Is it that who Forrest Gump is named after?
influence growing among the blacks in the South. Despite its apparently well-structured appearance, the Klan had no membership rosters, no named chapters, and no listed local officers, so it was difficult to judge its membership. Due to the heavy response by President Andrew Johnson and the increasing numbers of federal soldiers into the southern states as a result, Forrest called for the Klan to disband in 1869. He stated that it was being perverted from its original honorable and patriotic purposes, becoming injurious instead of subservient to the public peace. Historian Stanley Horn argues that, generally speaking, the Klan's end was more in the form of spotty, slow, and gradual disintegration than a formal and decisive disbandment.
I didn't know he called for the disbandment of the KKK, though.
Despite Gordon's and Forrest's work, local Klan units never accepted the prescript and continued to operate independently without any form of command and control. Historian George C. Rabel argues that the Klan declined in strength in part because of internal weaknesses, its lack of central organization, and the failure of its leaders to control criminal elements and sadists. More fundamentally, it declined because it failed to achieve its central objective, the overthrow of Republican state governments in the South. Historian Elaine France Parsons describes the membership, quote,
So there were Democrats trying to overthrow like the Republicans, the rise of the Republicans type stuff. I do remember like Dinesh D'Souza was saying because it was formed by like African American people back in the day, and then it kind of evolved from going against Republicans to like almost all African American people type stuff.
Lifting the Klan mask revealed a chaotic multitude of anti-black vigilante groups, disgruntled poor white farmers, wartime guerrilla bands, displaced Democratic politicians, illegal whiskey distillers, coercive moral reformers, sadists, rapists, white workmen fearful of black competition, employers trying to enforce labor discipline, common thieves, neighbors with decades-old grudges.
We kind of still see that shit with like people are like Mexicans this or stuff like that, or I don't know, they're taking people's jobs type shit, like, oh, they're not Americans. So it kind of went from just being a race against other races to kind of where you were born, nationalities or stuff like that. So you even see like Mexican Americans say that about like illegal immigrants at times. I've seen it, you know what I mean? So it's pretty crazy.
And even a few freedmen and white Republicans who allied with Democratic whites or had criminal agendas of their own. Indeed, all they had in common, besides being overwhelmingly white, Southern, and Democratic, was that they called themselves, or were called, Klansmen. Another historian, Eric Foner, observed, in effect,
Foner.
The Klan was a military force serving the interests of the Democratic Party, the planter class, and all those who desired restoration of white supremacy. Its purposes were political, but political in the broadest sense, for it sought to affect power relations, both public and private, throughout Southern society. It aimed to reverse the interlocking changes sweeping over the South during Reconstruction, to destroy the Republican Party's infrastructure, undermine the Reconstruction state, reestablish control of the black labor force, and restore racial subordination in every aspect of Southern life. To that end, they worked to curb the education, economic advancement, voting rights, and right to keep and bear arms of black people. The Klan soon spread into nearly every Southern state, launching a reign of terror against Republican leaders, both black and white. Those political leaders assassinated during the campaign included Arkansas Congressman James M. Hines, 3 members of the South Carolina legislature, and several men who served in constitutional conventions. The Klan primarily focused upon suppressing black voters, and a political campaign often turned deadly. More than 2,000 people were killed, wounded, or otherwise injured in Louisiana.
Yeah, it's just fucking sad, you know what I mean? And it's not acceptable, and we all know that, and it's it's sad because we all forget about this history, or we forget the numbers, or we forget the atrocities of what happened in the past. Like I ain't gonna say that it's like blame all the white man type stuff, because some in a lot of our cultures that's how it was. It was like survival of the fittest. Even in Native Americans, like we kind of took, you know what I mean, and everybody pillaged and all that kind of shit too. So, I'm talking about a different time. I'm sorry. Get off topic.
Louisiana in the few weeks leading up to the presidential election of November 1868. One example was in St. Landry Parish, which had a registered Republican majority of 1,071. The Klan's efforts proved effective because after the murders, no Republicans voted in the fall elections. White Democrats cast the full vote of the parish for General Ulysses S. Grant's opponent, Democrat Horatio Seymour.
They broke the will of them, by all these scare tactics and shit, You still kind of see scare tactics to this day, whether you're on the right side or wrong side. I don't even know what that means, you know what I mean? But it's crazy because you still see shit happen. You see people getting killed off. You hear about it, but you don't know if it's true or not sometimes. And because there's so much misinformation out there, and there's so much of the correct information out there. You don't really fucking know.
KKK also killed and wounded more than 200 black Republicans hunting and chasing them down. In the governor's race in Columbia County, Georgia, 1,222 votes were cast for Republican Rufus Bullock, so the Klan got involved. By the November presidential election, the Klan's intimidation suppressed the Republican vote, and only one person voted for Grant. As a result, the 1871 Civil Rights Act allowed the president to suspend habeas corpus. This means that the traditional right to be brought before a court or a judge to appeal for bail or challenge an unlawful detention could be suspended, and was in fact suspended by Lincoln during the Civil War. During this period, the Florida Freedmen's Bureau records provided a detailed recounting of Klansmen's beatings and murders of freedmen and their white allies, numbering 150 dead in voting intimidations.
That's fucking sick, dude. It's fucking sick.
As a result of these actions, in 1870 and 1871, the federal government passed the Enforcement Acts, which were intended to investigate and prosecute Klan crimes. While racism was a core belief of the Klan, initially anti-Semitism was not. Many prominent Southern Jews identified wholly with Southern culture, resulting in examples of Jewish participation in the Klan until they too were included.
Don't they have like old Confederate money with like Jewish person on there? I can't remember where I seen that. Was that Joe Rogan's podcast or something like that? I believe I heard that, but I can't remember the good fellow's name. But they had hand in there too and stuff like that.
As targets. The second era of the Klan started in 1915 as a small group in Stone Mountain, Georgia. It expanded membership nationwide in the early and mid-1920s, including urban areas of the Midwest and West, with Kansas being a large Klan stronghold. The various independent Klan organizations often took a position of supporting prohibition and compulsory public education for white children, although blacks were not to be educated if possible, and if they were, only in segregated schools.
You got to keep them ignorant so you can keep them under you.
The Klan received its greatest propaganda boost of its entire history when film director D.W. Griffith released his 1915 silent film, The Birth of a Nation, which took great liberties with the truth surrounding the creation and activities of the first Klan.
And I heard they play that movie in the White House, right?
Was when the Klan was resurrected by William Joseph Simmons in Georgia due to the popularity of the film. Simmons relied on the original founding documents from the original Klan and collected the stories, relying upon the memories of some surviving elders. When the film was shown in Atlanta in December of 1915, Simmons and his new Klansmen paraded to the theater in their robes and pointed hoods, even riding on robed horses, imitating those scenes in the film. In the film, the Klan was represented as white knights of the nation's conscience, protecting white virtue and white women from the ravaging sexually aggressive Negro. The public response was very positive as a result, but
that's fucking crazy. And then they use that same kind of mentality to like make marijuana and all these illegal drugs, right? Because they were like, all these African Americans and Mexican Americans are smoking weed and fucking white women type shit. This is crazy, man. Well, and that was because of that that one guy wanted hemp to be illegal, right? So nobody knew that marijuana and hemp were actually like the same thing. It's just a different growing process, right? And it was all in favor of him because he owned all those lots of wood, and he was also like a paper company, and he was like one of the only news outlets out there. So he's spreading misinformation, and people were eating that shit up. You see it time and time again in history where misinformation can cause bodily harm towards a group of people, you know?
The film did not mention lynchings, other murders, and voter intimidation. Within the first 6 months of the association's national recruitment campaign, Klan membership had increased by 85,000 by 1920. By the mid-1920s, the organization's membership ranged from 3 to 8 million members. The Klan also began to
That's a lot of people.
become deeply involved in politics, even more so than in the 1860s to 1870s, as they knew that they needed pro-Klan Democratic members in state and federal government to block Republican actions targeting their organization. They needed politicians who would support Jim Crow laws and keep the federal government out of their business. They were described as being...
Yeah, the more the government gets involved, the less you're able to do, the less free reins you're able to have, various things like that. I mean, we're still facing that stuff today, you know. Government's always trying to get in there, but, you know, sometimes it might be for the good, you know, but not everything, like marriage and stuff like that. So, in my personal opinion, because, you know, if you want to marry somebody, do it out of love. If you love that person, marry them. I don't give a fuck, as long as you're happy, right?
the acting military arm of the Democratic Party and were attributed with helping white Democrats regain control of state legislatures throughout the South through voter intimidation and ridiculous literacy and cognitive tests against black voters. In 1923, Simmons was ousted as leader of the KKK by Hiram Wesley Evans. From September 1923, there were two Klan organizations, the one founded by Simmons and led by Evans in the southern United States, and a separate group led by Grand Dragon D.C. Stevenson based in Indiana, with its membership primarily in the Midwestern United States. However, despite their rather successful advances into the political arena, public opinion was against the Klan, and membership rapidly declined in the latter half of the 1920s. Infighting from various Klan groups, as well as federal law enforcement opposition, brought about a collapse in the membership of both groups. Membership had dropped to about 30,000 by 1930, and finally faded away in the 1940s. The third incarnation of the Klan was
That's good. It was a fast fall, you know what I mean? So, but
resurrected in the early 1950s in the form of localized and isolated groups that used the KKK brand name locally but had no connected affiliation. They opposed the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, such as when they fought against Brown versus Board of Education and imposed separate but equal as their justification. During this period, they often infiltrated Southern police departments, schools, and governor's offices, such as George Wallace of Alabama. Several members of the Klan groups had beaten the Freedom Riders in 1961, murdered civil rights workers, such as Medgar Evers, by Klansman Byron Della Beckwith in 1963. Some were convicted of murder in the deaths of civil rights workers in Mississippi in 1964.
Didn't they have that one movie, Mississippi Burning or something like that? Very great movie. I do recommend that.
And of children in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963, and killing Viola Liuzzi in 1965. These activities saw the KKK classified as a hate group by the Anti-Defamation League and the Southern Poverty Law Center. The final demise of the original Klan arrived in the form of a senseless murder of 19-year-old black male Michael Donald in 1981 and a trial that made history in Alabama. In 1987, the Klan was successfully sued in federal court in a historic $7 million verdict against the men involved in the lynching of Donald. But Robert K. Byrd, the Democratic leader and longtime senator, was a Klan recruiter in the 1940s. He described the organization as a group of upstanding people, doctors, lawyers, clergy, judges, who he thought could provide an outlet for his talents and ambitions, and also supported his opposition to communism. Byrd claimed to have left the KKK in 1946, but encouraged by the Grand Dragon of his KKK branch, and with Klan money, Byrd ran on the Democratic ticket for both state and federal offices. The Klan funded him throughout his career. Byrd opposed Brown versus Board of Education, supported Jim Crow laws, and separate but equal racial laws. He joined James Strom Thurmond Sr., who also helped him in opposing racial equality laws. Also opposed the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and ran with Klan money. Byrd called
That's crazy, man.
civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. as a self-seeking rabble-rouser. Both Hillary Clinton and Joseph Biden proudly proclaimed Senator Robert K. Byrd to be their mentor. Building
That's crazy. I didn't know that. But I guess they said he denounced it and stuff like that. I mean, that's the common vernacular nowadays.
still carry Byrd's name in exaltation. The United States government still considers the Klan to be a subversive terrorist organization. Currently, the Anti-Defamation League puts total KKK membership nationwide at around 3,000, while the Southern Poverty Law Center claims 6,000 members in total. The Ku Klux Klan became notoriously immortalized by its actions, origins, and total creation by the Democratic Party, which supported and funded Klan activities to include political and criminal enterprises. Remember this when you hear people claim that Republicans are fascists. The Republicans were hated and targeted by the Klan, and for good reason.
We hope you enjoyed this segment of Forgotten History. Please click like and
Hell yeah, this is a great one. And, you know, it could be eye-opening for some people, like I suppose, whether they want to hear it or not. And there's going to be people out there that'll shit on it anyways and decide not to listen to some stuff too. So they could be facing facts and they could still choose not to listen. So
subscribe for free. And please stay tuned and be engaged and informed. Send us comments if you have questions or even show ideas, and we will respond to all requests and comments as soon as we can. Thank you.
Oh man, that's a great one though. But if you guys do like this, hit that like and subscribe button, please. I do appreciate it. And head over to Forgotten History channel. I'll put it down. I'll add it into the description, of course. And feel free to share your thoughts down below. You know what I mean? I like to hear those. I like to read those. Just God honest truth. You know what I mean? I grew up in a Democratic family, and I was told to be Democratic growing up. From my family, we're Native Americans. It was based simply because Democrats are for people that are of that it is for people that are of color because we are being oppressed. That Republicans are racist, mostly just white people type stuff, and I didn't know, that's how I was growing up. I don't particularly pick a side, not at all, and I don't really know anything about this stuff, you know what I mean? But I do like to read about history, and I do like to try to educate myself, whether it's through actual books, whether it's here on YouTube, which there's so much great information, right? And I urge everybody to keep reading on. I don't think we should be picking sides, me personally, but I'm just a big dummy, and I'm just doing what's best for myself and my family, and that's get better every day, and don't just take somebody else's word for it. You got to kind of go out there and see it, because sometimes you hear about these things and you're seeing something totally different that's happening in your world all around you. So you just got to keep your eyes open and believe what you see and the things that you experience and shit like that. And just because somebody tells you you have to because of your race or something like that, you don't have to. Don't feel inclined to do that. Find the truth on your own, and you don't have to pick a side. Because there shouldn't be no sides if we're thinking about the well-being of all our people. So I'm like I said, don't take any advice from me though. I don't know squat diddly about that stuff, and I just hope everybody lives a peaceful life, and which I know is impossible because there's always wars, there's always something going on in this world, and stuff like that. So peace out. Love you guys.